Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's David Palmer, the Leo King, here at highvibetv for After Dark, the spiritual talk show for August the 27th of 2019. We've got a lot of awesome people here, but before we get to them, check out highvibetv. It's an awesome network where, of course, it's all about spirituality, your growth, and being just high vibe and having a good time, too. But we also go into the deep stuff. We go all over. High vibes are everywhere. Make sure you check it out. We got awesome exclusive content. We've got an awesome school if you want to learn about being more high vibe yourself. And speaking of that school, we got two awesome guests that are always big regulars on this show. We got Sarah Paasch in the house. She's got an awesome school on highvibetv. We got Dylan, the spirit advisor, in the house. And today we got a special guest, which actually I met at my Denver show, my tour last year. We got Tim Schwartz in the house. Inspire, what is it? What is your Instagram handle?
Inspire with words.
I love it. And we're going to go into what he does. He does some really cool stuff right now, which is totally like a little bit alien too, which I like.
Oh, yeah.
Tonight, when I was doing my show about this new moon this week and just about the energy, I was like, one, there's so much energy, but yet you can't see it because the sun's blurring it all out. And we're dealing with Uranus. So there is kind of a weird behind-the-scenes action going on. How are you guys all feeling with all this energy lately? Who's ever rapping, ready to go?
Well, actually, I rather enjoy this energy right now. This energy feels very activating, but in a way that is fun if you allow it to be. Yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it. I'll have to let more come naturally, but that's what I'm feeling right now.
I'm feeling like I'm seeing a lot of irritation in people. I'm seeing a lot of people have their anxiety or their blame thing get the best of them. And just I feel like there's a heightened sensitivity because people can't see what's going on right now, so they're just naturally more fearful and more reactive on one side of things. And then I also feel like but part of that sensitivity is coming from there's just a lot of inner boundaries being broken down right now, but in this kind of unseen way. So it's not super tangible, I recognize this shift in me. It's all this stuff inside us that are, like you've been saying in deep astrology, our own blocks to experiencing our full throttle emotionality and really letting the spirit, being in the spirit of us. I think those are coming down, and with them, of course, there's triggers, there's old stories coming to the surface, there's old stories trying to rehash themselves, and people trying to cope with this feeling of change in ways that are old school, and are kind of obsolete for them. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm feeling. And just a lot of I feel like we're moving, we're being pushed forward right now. There is a pressure of sorts, and yeah, it's fascinating to watch.
It has been a very interesting time, to say the least. I mean, I think like Sarah said, it's a really great energy. Mm-hmm. And then there is that combo of what Dylan's saying is it's bringing up, I see a lot of frustration in people too, and I'm seeing frustration in myself, but it usually is you're at a block of experience. But I think this is Jupiter Sag, so coming back online of experience, we learn from experience, and Virgo is very precise of how it wants things to be, but with Jupiter there, it's kind of well, experience it maybe if it is a little off or if it is a little not perfect. But we have Tim in the house, which I want to introduce Tim to everybody because I met Tim in Denver when I did my show there last year, and he's popped up in my life a lot. And I didn't even. How did you and Dylan meet, Tim?
Actually, Dylan gave me a human design reading, and we've stayed friends since then. We got some kava earlier. And,
nice.
Hung out, and Dylan's
no wonder you guys are chilling.
We're very chill.
Yeah, but I would love for people to know what you're doing. So when I first met Tim, he was talking to me and he was telling me what he was doing and about truly, this really recreation of how we're going to be living in life, and almost like you're channeling this new way for people to, I don't want to say live, but really it's a lot deeper than that. I'd love for you to tell people what it is that you're doing.
Sure. I'm actually developing a mobile, off-grid, live-work event space that's shaped like a spaceship. It's going to be 12,000 square feet. It's about 20 containers all around, so all the infrastructure will be containers. And you can break down the whole structure, even though it's humongous and it's going to probably be very expensive and hard to do. You could do it. And it really kind of looks at, why are we building real estate that's permanent? It's an old model. Why are we jailing ourselves to the space we're living? If you look at the political tension, natural disasters, like, we do not know where we're headed, and our greatest insurance policy is being off-grid and being mobile. And it's also kind of creating a new communal sense. Like, people are in their little boxes, little jails called homes, and that's an old model. And it's a way of having communal living that could be mobile as well. I think it's a really interesting way to look at things, because, man, the future, 2020, it's an interesting time for a spaceship.
Well, I was going to say, I have an RV, and I look at it like my little spaceship because I love it. I can go anywhere, but I've become so comfortable in my RV that people think it's crazy that, you know, it's parked out front here, that I will live in it sometimes. You know, like, if I don't want to go drive back to my house, I'll live in there. And it's like my home. I love it. And being able to go wherever I want, it's awesome. Off-grid, too, which is awesome with mobile homes, right? There's ways to do off-grid, especially with solar now, with the ability for the solar to do all this great stuff. But I also think it's about more of communal living. And actually, this goes to what we talk about a lot on this show, is like allowing this kind of natural, I guess you could say, whether it's order or spirit, to come through. I love how you use jailed as a way of looking at a home, and how the pipes are, and I mean, it literally is like contained. And I think that there's a part of our souls that are trying to free themselves, especially with all this Uranian energy and stuff, and do much more of a free experience. And the communal aspect, which I love, the way that you had it set up the first time I met you too, is how really it's everybody's involved in the community, but you still kind of have your own space. So it's not like everybody's on top of each other, but everybody's involved, and everybody's in a centristic element of coming together, whether you want to or not, but still being part of it.
Yeah, I think the trick to community is having like a communal space allowing your own privacy. So the whole idea would be to have a bunch of micro art homes around the spaceship. And the first one I'm developing right now is a chili home. I have a heart home, a rainbow home, a unicorn home. So you go to your happy home if you want some privacy. If you want to have some communal time, come to the spaceship and transcend to another dimension.
Well, I think that you actually, by doing this into the reality, you're actually showing a lot of what I think right now is what's going on in people in their own lives, and kind of what to do themselves. Like how you brought up these different home ideas, and, you know, maybe somebody might not want to go in the unicorn home, right? They might want to go in the heart home or something. But this is like teaching people that there is so many doorways and avenues in life, and to allow yourself to experience and create right now, and to blossom into this beautiful energy. And in many ways, you're kind of really showcasing that in the world, and really being a leader and showing that. And I think that this is kind of what this energy is about right now. Virgo is beautiful, and when it's only in its pure form, it can be very Charlie Sheenish. You know, this is my theory on Virgos. They are very easy to see if they're in a toxic or non-toxic state, because they wear the toxicity or not.
Yeah.
Or the beauty. Like, the most beautiful people in the world, I will admit, are Virgos. Every time I'm like, whether it's an Instagram model or it's something, I'll be like, looking up their birthday, like, Virgo. It's crazy.
The vessel.
Do you want to expand?
Do you want a microphone?
Yeah. Well, to talk a little bit about what Tim's doing, I feel like it's such a great mirror of the astrology, with Uranus and Taurus, and the big time kind of reconstitution of our institutions and our governing systems, and all these like big, like bulky structures that are super heavy and super like crushing to a lot of people, actually. I mean, it's like such a beautiful kind of foreshadowing of really the direction that humanity's going. And when I look at it through human design too, we're moving away from this cycle of planning that we've been in the last 600 years, where everything is about communal resources and calling one identity and one national identity, yours, and that's what defines yourself, and having to bargain your time and energy in the collective in order to receive enough to be supported. And so it's like we're actually moving away from that. 2027, the cycle will shift. We're moving into individual empowerment and individual spirit and individual sexuality. And so it's like your work is mirroring where this is all going anyway, where we're going to have to be more, supple and changeable and mobile and cooperative and also unique, because it is about our individual spirit. So yeah, some people want the unicorn house. I want the pineapple house. Sarah, what house would you want?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'm wondering too. We're gonna grill you.
That's fine. Yeah.
Which house would you want?
I'll let you
This
know
is
in
Mars
advance.
now in Virgo. What is it? I want to know exactly which house that you would be in.
She has emotional authority. She needs time to feel out the truth.
It'll come through eventually.
No.
No, Sarah's is gonna be something that we're gonna all be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but we all wouldn't think of it right now.
Right.
Oh, the pressure.
No pressure. But what would
Yeah.
yours be, David?
Oh, what would mine be?
A big suit of
Mine
armor?
would be a vampire house. Like very regal, old, like red and
Gothic.
blacks and gothic purples with lions, but it would be very, like, I don't know if you guys watch John Wick, but it would be like the way that when you go deeper into the layers of the Continental Hotel.
Like high-end vampire.
High end, or
Vampires
like Deacon
only do
Frost,
high end.
which is my alter ego in Blade. How he has the big high top, he lives at the top of the skyscraper, and he's got an infinity pool, and the doors open up with the city overlooking. But like that vibe of just like, yeah,
In the christening of your vampire home, Vampire Weekend could play.
yeah,
Right. Everybody in the chat, what would your house be?
yeah.
Tell
What
us.
would your house be?
Yeah. Actually, after Dylan started sharing about this energy, I was like, oh yeah, it has been a little bit touchy and sensitive, and it's like sparky. So not like sparkly, but like Uranian sparky. And it's but with the supportive aspects, right? Because it's like got all this earth energy, and with Virgo, it's felt very like it's like time to show up for comprehension, right? It's like the comprehensive exam. So it's like we've learned so much. 2019. Let's include 2018 in that. There's been so much experience already that right now feels like a comprehensive exam where you like show up, and the energy feels like it's like there's that like instantaneous like which one are you going to choose? Like you can see it. There's like this like just like minimum pause, but you're like, ooh, wait, I know what this is. And there's an option. And it feels like there's also the advantage of compartmentalization. Like I've felt like there's this energy of being able to like, all right, like I have the capacity to like hone that in, like edit it, like put it in a box, and like not repress it or not ignore it, but just like put it down and put my energy here. So there's like this focus that's available, and there's also this option to drain yourself in a trigger or in like a story or in a conflict.
Ooh.
The fire, you can like start a fire and you can like do a forest fire and drain yourself that way, and then you work yourself up and you've got all this stuff. Like there's something so small that can set you off, and then the mind can like literally like go insane, going all these places. But if you're capable of containing it for like, my friend gave the best advice. She said the discernment of time. She was like, give something like 2 days, and if the mind is still like just ruminating, then it needs to come up for like conversation. You know what I mean? Like then it's like something that actually has to be put out. But I think right now, if we can have the personal containment of what we're experiencing in like a momentary trigger or something, and like compartmentalize it, I think there's like a lot of like quick like leaps we can be making.
Yeah, it comes up. Remember that old game Operation? like, you know, and like,
Oh, I hate it. That gives me anxiety thinking about it.
But then I was thinking with Mars here, it almost feels like rushed to do emergency surgery when maybe Saturn's saying,
Right.
no, hold on. Because Mars on top of everything right now in Virgo is an emergency surgeon. You know, that cleans it all up. And, you know, oh, we need to get rid of that artery and unplug that and just stint it up and just staple it. You know?
Yeah, there's that that feeling like we have to do it all and we have to do it all right now.
Yeah, I know.
But that's a story. And
Yeah.
I've seen myself, I've watched my mind go down that track, and I've literally, like, it felt like sitting in boiling water almost. It was just like, oh my God, like, can I let this shit, like, just come on, let's move on. And eventually it does, you know, but
there
it's
is
not-
a dark moon this week before the new moon on Mars. So there is something, maybe it's almost like, I like the 2-day analogy because there's this 2.5 days of a dark moon that's starting where it's like, what are we bringing into this new moon cycle on Mars with Uranus that is going to all then in the next month be a Saturn direct day? Everything's going to come into the big T-scores of Jupiter and Neptune's last big square.
I feel like it's also, though, like, okay, if a baseball player, I had this analogy come to me last week.
Ooh, I love
If a baseball player, I caught myself late in the day. There was something that happened in the beginning of the day, and later in the day, my mind showed me this whole scenario, and I was like, oh wow, I totally like wasn't nice to myself. I was like hypercritical, and I was like, oh man. So I like did myself forgiveness, and then after I did it, it was like I saw this image of a baseball player. It was an outfield player, and he's like getting ready for this catch, he's going to catch it, and misses it, and the baseball player just stares at the ball because he missed it. Like, the game's still going. Like, it's okay. Like, pick up the ball and like make the play. And the universe is like, it was the universe like telling me, like, Sarah, it doesn't matter if you caught it in the moment or later in the day. Like, pick up the ball, keep going. Like, we're in the game. The game's playing, the ball's rolling. Like, how quickly
the runner could slip and fall.
Yeah, like pick up the ball and
So
stay in
it's
the game.
not over yet.
So stay in the game.
Yeah, it's not over.
Yeah.
Stay in the game. Get in the arena.
Stay in the arena. Yeah.
Because if you're not, you're sleeping on the beginning of a very potent process that's being placed here so that you're more prepared for the crazy shit coming at the end of the year and into 2020. So, yeah, now's not a time to be asleep. I know that much. Also...
I love that. It's so just like, yeah, no, now's not the time to be asleep. But yeah, also.
I don't know what I was going to say.
The conversation is so Uranian tonight.
It is
I
like
love
boop,
it.
boop, boop. Oh,
It's very,
oh wait, I lost it. Oh no, 59th gate. So in this,
of course.
in this changeover-ish period from like the Leo energy into the Virgo energy, we're in the gate 59, gene key 59, which is all about the fear that humans harbor towards each other, and how our when we veil a part of ourselves in the world, it creates a reason for other people to be fearful of us. And we all do it. We all have something where we don't give our full transparency to the world. And it's interesting because the friction that's created from that fear is actually what drives us to connect and to mate and to create more. Because part of this 59 energy is making more. It's actually the gate of sexual roles. Like, are you the pursuer or the pursued? Are you the seducer or the seductress or whatever? So behind that story that's very superficial of like our sexuality and our procreative drive, there's this deeper unveiling and this unfurling of like, when we can become more transparent beings to each other, we have less grounds on which to fear each other, and then we just have more potential for birthing newer forms. So it's about kind of like, that's the reason these like emotional blocks are coming up right now, because these are the barriers to union and community that we need to release as a collective in order to be open to these new kinds of, in spirit kinds of cooperation, where if we were just in our minds, we would not be able to cooperate in this new paradigm. But so yeah, we're releasing those
Yeah,
old
and that kind of goes to Sarah's analogy of the ball dropping. It reminds me when I had really bad anxiety and panic. If I had problems with going over crosswalks for some reason, especially like living in the city, like, you know, it was like, am my legs going to work right now? Like in the middle of the crosswalk with all the cars ready to go. Like there'd be but I knew that was like all mind. So with like the baseball analogy, it's like, that's all mine. Like get back and just play. And then you're not, you know. And you brought up a great thing about this more, I guess maybe this, correct me if I'm wrong, but this 59th gate to me feels like a very like personal exposure kind of energy. Like once you come into it, all is revealed. Because if you notice, whenever you're really real with somebody, whether that's sexually or even if it's not, if you're just, now you're opening up kind of your truth, let's say, like everything starts to go really better in the relationship. You get to know them, you feel them. And that's where in community, and this brings up where I want to get the opinion here from Tim and why he's doing this, is if you think of communities today, nobody's revealing what they're doing anymore. Communities they're around, but I think this whole kind of jailed idea, like I think when the forefathers of the country thought of communities coming together to build local governments and stuff, like, do any of us want to go to City Hall? Like, yeah, right. Like, it's kind of the place we avoid now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because we're all kind of like in our own little weird sections and walled off by everything, and everything's just like, so there's really no exposure, and everybody's also playing that fake false game. Like, I want to make sure I look the best in the community, where everybody's not open and being like, I'm not doing really well today. You know, like,
yes.
like, and I think maybe that got lost in the 50s. There was a lot of community in the 50s, you know, but then it was also the beginning of kind of this more gridded suburban thing. So I think at the beginning it felt really good, and then it kind of got lost.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fear at the same time.
So maybe there's a combination, and maybe that's what I want to get here from Tim here, is like, it's almost like, you know, you're taking the best things that came out of what this system is, but bringing back to the original or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of communities that are happening today, like intentional communities, but it's very, nothing against hippies. There's an element of me that's very hippie, but it doesn't transcend that demographic. It's just very kind of, it's an old model. It's rooted, it can't be moved. Even the off-grid infrastructure in a lot of these intentional communities, you couldn't move it. Where like, you know, I'm thinking of an off-grid system where like literally it moves with the spaceship. It's a combination of rainwater and atmospheric water generation. And the combination of that, it's free and you could be anywhere. And community, in my mind, the way you transcend just like a hippie community is cool design, being off-grid and being mobile. And I think that could attract anyone. It's cool art. Like, why do we just look at art? Let's live in art. And I think that is 5D. That is the next level of where we're going. And I think for people to be transparent, it's really a time to purge. It's really interesting because I was talking to Dylan earlier, and I'm actually doing a parasite turpentine cleanse right before the new moon. Dylan's going off to Peru to do ayahuasca. So I think for us to really be open,
59th gate, baby, let's do it.
To be emotionally open to get through these blocks, this is the perfect time to do a cleanse, whether it's ayahuasca, turpentine, or whatever you want.
Right.
I'm calling it the big bleach out.
Ooh.
The big bleach out, because what are we bleaching out? We're bleaching out the fear of each other. Because who are we to each other if we fear each other? We're potential enemies, we're potential adversaries, we're potentially threatened, but what we can't see in each other. So when that transparency comes after the great flushing, the great flushing of September 2019, what do we have? We have a clear playing field to show not only the ways in which we independently need support and assistance from others, but also what we have to offer to the collective. And so in that setup, we have so much more ease of interlinking and mutating the ways in which we cooperate. And I think that's the beginning of something very special, and that's what's going to carry us through the difficult times of watching our institutions and everything that keeps society intact non-violently crumble, because that's just the cycle we're living through.
That's what I think the whole Saturn-Pluto ending in Libra from 82 and 83 has been about. To come into Capricorn is relationships, communities, partnerships, friendships, And with Uranus and Taurus, I think this is about learning that we all do not have the same values. But how do we find a way to all still get along? You know?
Right.
And finding whatever that common human value is, which I think is what Uranus and Taurus always brings near the end.
Totally. Near the end.
You know?
Yeah.
Near the end. Yeah, exactly. After, you know.
And yet after the
Hitlers
rainforest
and
is
stuff
on
like that.
fire, which I feel like is super Uranus and Taurus, that like the Amazon burning. But to be honest, when I saw that was happening, it obviously is very devastating and very tragic. But the first thing that came to mind was like, there's no ignoring what's the reality of our Earth now. There's
Right.
no room left for debate. Like when I saw that degree of destruction, I was like, it's done. People are going to wake up now because there is no other country anymore. There is no place far off, you know, in some other part of the world. We are so obviously connected in this moment through the crisis that we're going through that it's going to have to force us. I don't think it will actually be a forceful process. It'll just be one that we weren't expecting to have to do so soon. But it will actually require us to step up into new values and really check in with ourselves. Do my values and my decisions hurt the world or do they support the world, you know? And like down to the way that we interact with each other. Does me clinging to my egoic righteousness that you did me wrong and you're a bad person and I'm a good person, does that actually serve the globe? Does that actually serve humanity? No. And we're going to have to look at all those ways in which our subjectivity and our attachment to our point of view is going against what we need as a collective.
Yeah.
We're going to have to rewrite it.
And I think I love that you're bringing this up because I think right now with Virgo season, we have personally this beautiful medicine to be humble and to practice this like inner self-awareness, this self-reflective process. And are we willing to ask ourselves, do I even know if I'm causing harm? Like, I think that is so important. Are we so defended and so afraid to admit that we are ignorant in some way, or we are potentially unknowingly, even if it's like innocently, are we willing to learn how we can like not cause harm, or how we can inform ourselves so that we can better support, you know, people and our environment? So I think it's also this process of engaging in our own humility and our own, like, to be a beginner. And I was thinking about Tim's whole thing too, and everything we've been talking about. It's like with the the Mars and the Operation game, I think right now it's really important we look at the long game and that we play for the long game, and that we're not just playing for like this one play. Like, we're just playing like this one conversation, this one, you know, situation. It's like that's done. Like it's time to like wake up. I think that's what waking up is right now. Is like, can you look beyond this moment, beyond this time frame, and see like how it can ripple? And are you willing to want to know like what ripple are you having genuinely? Not what you want to be having, but what are you genuinely having? How are you actually impacting people?
Which is, like Dylan said, is I think the impacting is creating the crises on these earth, like the Amazon. And I think it's spiritually driven, like mostly. Like I think a lot of people think it's more physical, but we're creating this kind of physical stuff through how we're reacting inside as a collective and individually. And I think what the weirdest part about Uranus and Taurus is, to come to Sarah's point, that she's right. Like, we have to put her humility first to do this stuff, but to do this better work. Usually we do our best work when we feel in our best value, though, right? So it's like when we feel worthless, we really don't show up that great, ever.
Yeah.
And so that's what's weird is some people might have been taking what I've been saying over the last couple of days wrong about the Amazon, because I've been saying that, you know, one, look at the media didn't cover it till the internet did, right?
Yeah.
Like they were more focused on shit that really does not matter. But what they've done is then when they do pick it up, then they make us feel like you're all the problem, right? So that takes down people's value of humanity and of the individual. So then it's almost like I've been saying there's this weird force out there that really is kind of trying to to not have people step into their ultimate value to do their greatest work, like by demoralizing humanity itself or demoralizing people, we do that to others, right? So it's like there is some sort of collective like demoralization or devaluing of the human itself. How is humanity going to pick itself up and do the great work if it feels that way? So I think that a lot of the work right now is like how Dylan said, you know what, if somebody did you wrong or if a relationship doesn't work out, like there's ways to still be like, it didn't work out, we can still be great people and good to each other, and I'm going my own direction and you're going your direction, and we're all part of the collective that's all going in a direction that's good.
I've been seeing this meme circulate, and it's pretty good. It's like a meme of Drake doing his little dance, and in the first frame he's like and it said, that person pissed me off, and then the second frame he's like, and it says, nope, I actually chose to piss myself off through that person. So like you were saying earlier, taking full responsibility for our victim mentality and the level to which we subscribe to that perspective, that we are ever at the mercy of another force outside of us, which when you are somebody who even dabbles in a mindfulness practice, you begin to see that that's not the truth. That's actually a huge illusion that your ego holds over you to keep you stuck in this lower frequency state of disempowerment, disbelief, and basically not having enough space within your life or your body for your true spirit to be that which is acting through you and guiding your decisions. Because then it's just fear and regurgitation that guides your decisions, and that's where we get into situations where huge crisis happens, nothing changes. So I just feel like spiritually there's almost going to be like, again, this word force comes up. I don't know why. Maybe we'll get to the bottom of it by the end of this conversation. But it's like the higher energies that are coming in, and we in the spiritual community pay attention to these solar storms and activations and all this stuff. That kind of activation is going to force you to vibe up. Mm-hmm. And it's going to basically show you the gap between your true self and that integrity and how you're living. And it's not going to happen for everyone. But I think the people that are pursuing mindfulness and consciousness and this work, are going to have a great running start in that process and be able to role model it for the rest of the people. Mm. So,
yeah, I wanted to bring up Chiron and Aries, that it's quincunxing this new moon, this Mars, everything, right? So it's like, one, it might not look exactly the way we want it to. Like Chiron and Aries last time was the worst smog. So that's when smog laws started to come out. That's why cars from 70s, that's right, mm-hmm. was Chiron Aries. We had the gas crisis too during that time in Chiron and Aries. But what's interesting to me is also the aerosol can thing. Mm-hmm. Remember that the hole in the ozone, that was the big fear in the 70s, mm-hmm. right? From all the aerosols and all that stuff, right? So this Amazon thing is, I think, just the domino to whatever looks like a crisis, but this time we're aware with Chiron and Aries. We weren't aware. It wasn't found until 77. But it is this interesting thing of it's not going to look the way you want it to look, right? Like, I think people can play the victim role when, like, let's use, for example, let's say you get sick. So instead of you being like, gosh, I got sick, whether it's like you weren't taking care of yourself, you weren't getting enough sleep, it's like, gosh, I was next to that person who was coughing and they were da-da-da-da-da, and now I'm sick because of that person, right? It's like this angry Chiron, victim mm-hmm. that goes crazy. And then I started seeing all this crazy stuff online about the Amazon thing. Like, people started getting crazy. Like, it actually was like, no wonder there's a fire. Like, almost like, look at all these people getting angry about it, opposed mm-hmm. to like, let's figure something out. And then even Brazil was like, no, we're not taking the money from what was raised from France. And even I think Leonardo DiCaprio today raised $5 million or gave $5 million. Mm. I don't even know if they're like denying it because it makes them not feel sovereign as a nation on their own. Like they feel like they're a handicapped nation that needs help. That's literally what they said. That feels like
Chiron and Aries.
And that's very Chiron and Aries
too. Being able and to accept help. being able to admit that like we can't do it all on our own. I feel like that is very vital right now. And that's the whole like healing of the community thing. It's like we don't have to do it on our own. We were never actually supposed to do it on our own. We're healing. I mean, I feel like the codependency thing, I think we've talked about this, but it's like we've almost gotten so far away from that on the other end of the spectrum that we're like, depend on no one, like except for thyself. And that's not going to sustain us. Like we are, as human beings, a survival thing that we need is connection. Like connection is required for our survival. And I lost it, but there was something you were saying that totally resonated earlier. Maybe it'll come to me.
Well, I also think like Chiron in Aries is like protecting your smaller self. And like, oh, you think we're bad? Well, we're not going to take any of your assistance to like save the planet because we've got something to prove, and you're not letting us prove it.
It's like Napoleon syndrome a little bit. Or like, you know, it just reminds me of, you're right, some really wounded thing in self. It's like the bully in school who is a bully because he doesn't want to show his weaknesses in other areas. Like maybe he really likes to jump rope,
but it's showing. But it's like that's what's being shown right now is these like strong arms are actually revealing the insecurity, and that is what came to me was like I was reading, I can't remember the name of the book, it's the Stephen Forrest book, but Forrester astrology book, I think the Changing Sky, A Changing Sky, and it was talking about, I was reading about Mars and progressed Mars, and this is a great collective thing though. It was talking about how like we don't actually like get the medicine of a progressed Mars if the Mars, the trickster, is like violence breeds violence, fear breeds fear, and it's like fighting breeds fighting, hate breeds hate. And there's this image he gives of like someday in the future, like when the whole world's an apocalypse and this new like generation of whatever beings come in, they're like, oh wow, like the other like beings couldn't actually evolved to be peaceful enough to survive. Like it's not going to be like forest fires alone that are going to terminate us. It's going to be ourselves and each other. And can we, like, I don't know, I think right now with this trine to Uranus, it's like take a moment to like zoom way out and just recognize, like, this is the bottom line truth of the matter is like, until we stop acting in this way or reacting, like it will not change. And it doesn't matter how many people like did you wrong. Like, are you strong enough to just do it different anyways? To like respond differently, to like take one for the freaking team, you know? Like, I don't know. I think that, and I think it's available right now. It feels really available. It feels like it's like a time to get comfortable being uncomfortable. But it's temporary discomfort because we're at a very precious, it feels precious, like this evolutionary potential for us all to step up and be like, I can like swallow my pride, I can ask for help, I can lean in, I can reveal myself, I can be transparent, and potentially like stop these cycles of a lot of violence and damage.
Yeah.
It's very like and the way that the media is doing it is creating that, but then people react to that. So it's, I think one is when something pops up, even if it is social media or TV or anything, be like very discerning right now about how you take in. It was during the election and all the whole process. Remember, that was when the Square videos came out. Remember that whole Square video thing? Like, and it's still out there where on Instagram you'll see like big letters, you know, like a sentence on top of the video, and then it'll play a clip. And basically it's a subliminal message to like have you just totally buy whatever's being sold to you of the clip. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Right? So it's like super instant, very damn, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, now I believe I'm going to change my whole life off this little video that I didn't even do any research on. That the reactions to things now are just, oh my gosh, we got to do something now. And it's like, you're right. Sarah said it the best right now. It will not be this outer world that destroys us. It will literally be ourselves.
And all this Stuff is just reflections of people's internal livelihood. Like, it's a reflection of the Amazon burning is really the destruction of people who are destroying themselves. So it gives us an opportunity to, like, how can I heal myself instead of freak the heck out?
Well, I think you bring up a great point. Also, forests do go on fire on purpose to purify itself. Like, that's a natural process that does happen. I don't know how this forest fire was started.
Oh my gosh, this came to me earlier today because I was thinking, like, that right now it's so important that we don't forget the other side of Virgo, which is Pisces. And it's like, don't forget to ask God for help. Like, don't forget to invite the universe or some other spiritual, like, perspective into
force.
This whole thing where it's like, okay, yes, it's a mirror for our anger and, like, how do we cool ourselves down and what's our reign? Yes. And how do we know it's not divine and we are not God? So, like, both. I think it's important that we include, it's not just Virgo, you know, like, Virgo lives on the other side of Pisces. And this is how we bring spirituality. These are the moments where it's like we stop and we look at, like, it could be bigger than this, like the symbolism and
This is how we bring heaven to earth. And also, when I saw the forest burning, I got this, like, download maybe from Gaia herself, and it was basically that nature understands. Nature is not a victim of us, even though it may very well seem that way. And there are definitely things we need to do to vastly improve our relationship to our natural environment. But nature itself is such a vast consciousness that it understands even the necessity for a huge swath of that Amazon to burn away. Because it's not just about the pristine world and the preservation and just, like, the rose in the glass case as far as nature goes. We are in an interdependent evolutionary process in which we cannot evolve without her, and she cannot evolve without us, or else we wouldn't all be here. It would just be nature planet if we weren't needed here. And so it's sometimes loss and grief are the biggest teachers and the biggest awakeners. You know, many people who have gone through those things know this, that, you know, you can be so asleep in your life, and then it's, even though it doesn't seem directly related, you can lose someone you love, and that begins your process of turning and facing spirit and encompassing more in your awareness and the possibilities of more and what's between the lines and between the words and what we can't see. So, you know, as much as it's awful, I feel like it is still, you know, it's not just this perpetration necessarily. It's not just this complete crime. It's part of a bigger story that, yes, we do have to be responsive to fully reach the true ending, you know?
or the gift of it. I think it's also the thing with, like, loss and grief is, like, that's available if we lean in and receive it. And it comes back to what you mentioned earlier about how it's okay to, like, have an off day. It's okay to have an off moment. It's okay to need time to go through grief. It's okay to actually connect to the suffering in the world, the suffering caused by violence. It's okay to actually feel into those things if you're allowing that to inform a deeper sense of connection and purpose for life, you know?
I think Chiron and Aries will be very hard for the collective and individuals if they just start seeing everything the way they don't want to. Like, it's going to show up looking like they don't want to see it. And the healing is when you look at it the opposite way of, like, okay, I'm taking this in. That doesn't look the way I want it to, but maybe there's something there when I accept it instead of react to it. Because the forest fire brought up a lot of other people's opinions about other things on Earth, if you noticed, that they like to fight about, right? So it brought up about animal farming. It brought up about a lot of things, which are very important aspects. But it's almost like people are using everything to then put this cause and this cause and this cause, when there is something that I think Sarah has brought up very well, which is, like, we have to ask for this universal help. We have to know that there's a more bigger picture, pull out a little bit more, because it's very right now on, like, that. And that's too much because it's going to be too stressful, especially this month. There might be a forest fire might just be like a pre-party based with Uranus trining this new moon with Mars, and we've got Jupiter that's going to square everything, right, with Neptune in opposition and a full moon coming in the next couple of weeks on Neptune square Jupiter. It's going to be a radical month here that if you can accept what's being shown, because that's what Chiron does, is just accept the situation of, oh, I've been shot. Okay. Does it mean it's over? Like, no, like, might be shitty, but there's something when you accept, like when you get, we're so first world, like, American humans, where it's like, I just broke my like nail for a second, right? Like I'm talking even as a man, right? Like it hurts, or I got a paper. We'll use a better one, a paper cut.
They're both pretty bitchy.
Right, they're bitchy, right? And they suck.
They do suck.
But it's like, are we gonna like sit there and all day go, this paper cut is now ruining my ability to drive my car and talk on my iPhone and do that, like the whole day? Like, you know what I mean? Or do you just like put a Band-Aid on it, accept it? It's not the way I wanted to go to this date or to see my mom or, whatever. But I was supposed to cook for my boyfriend or whatever and just be like, boom, and still enjoy life a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that's when that will heal, and probably heal quicker than anything, too. Because if Aries is such a powerful, strong, fast, gets to the point in the identity right away, it's almost like we can heal these things faster by accepting them in a weird way.
That's really cool. I was just talking to somebody tonight about, she had a conversation with her father who served in, I think it was Vietnam. And this is like the first time, she's almost 30, that he's ever shared any of his stories from that. And it's really, we were talking about how like as a society, and especially like in our generation, it's like we have had the privilege of not being, at least I can speak for myself, like maybe there's been hardship, but I have never experienced that. And we have become so like desensitized to actual, and because of technology, like we look at this Amazon fire it's so available, but it's here, like it's not hitting us here. So then we're desensitized to real things like of humanity, like real suffering. And then we're hypersensitive to our own paper cuts, to our own pain. And so we don't even know how to compartmentalize. We don't even know how to sit in discomfort. We don't even know how to accept life. And it's so funny because it's like, I got on like a fender bender a couple weeks ago, and I spent a week like figuring out like, what am I going to do? And people were telling me like, call this person, try to do this, like don't go through insurance, do like get this. And I was like, I finally just like, I pay for insurance. I'm obviously just gonna get it fixed. Like that's it. And yeah, my insurance rates might go up. That's part of life. Like that's what happens. And that's okay. And I'm like, wow, I was going crazy, like trying to run around this, just like, it's just part of life. And I don't know, I think that that's really important, especially with Saturn, Pluto in 2020. It is like, we could wake up now and it doesn't have to be forced. It doesn't have to be forced if we empower ourselves to admit how disconnected we are, or hypersensitive, or resistant.
I want to get all your opinion on this. So I like that you brought up on how like the forest fire, it's a visual thing we're seeing on a phone or a television screen, and you just said it's up in here. Well, to me, it's like anything Neptunian, which is the visual aspect, is subconscious. So it goes through a subconscious filtration system of everybody, and when you get Jupiter squaring it, beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody's got a different belief. Everybody's subconscious. There's a common denominator, I would say, of like a subconscious media thing to people. Then there's their own subconscious triggers that you brought up that are coming around. Mm-hmm. So when you add that, whatever that's going to come through that thing right now is pre-planned in a weird way too. Like they could take anything and dramatize it. Like we live in Orange County. It was right after the horrible shootings in El Paso. that following couple days, a guy here in Orange County ran around with a machete and was killing people and getting into 7-Elevens, killed one of the security guards with a gun, and was running around Orange County. And how many people he killed? 6 people? 6 people. 4 injured, 6. No media coverage on it at all, except for local, which is the 3 million people here. We're in the LA, or like the biggest, metropolitan area probably in America, wide-wise and everything. The national media didn't cover it at all. Now, if they were going after machetes right now, it would be da, 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 and everybody's ideas of what a machete is. Right now, it's guns, environment, or whatever, and I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying that this is where it's tapping all into. But what will be the one thing that they're playing with, that will be that ultimate subconscious belief thing that they know that everybody twists and it doesn't all make sense and it all messes with everybody's thing. It's almost like they're playing with it because they can take anything and turn it into whatever, right?
I have an opinion on this. I'm like realizing as you're saying this, I caught this on social media with myself and like at the spiritual community. I think we're doing it to ourselves. And I actually think it comes back to Chiron and Aries, and it's this whole like whatever it is that makes you feel afraid of connection because of the wounding in connection, that whatever's going to make you feel like you need to protect yourself and you need to defend yourself and you have every right to cut off or anything like that, I feel like that could potentially be something to fear each other. I feel like the human is the new weapon, like to fear each other. Back to what you were saying.
And I think we fear each other when we're not together. So that once again brings back to community. It's like we have lacked that. So the more that we can come together and talk to one another, the less we're gonna fear each other. And like you bring all these people that have different political beliefs. They're so far from each other. You bring them together. Some will still argue, but if you have a civilized conversation, people can realize how much we are like each other rather than not like each other, because I believe in this president or you believe in that president or this value or that value. It just takes us coming together and just having a civilized conversation in connection. I heard this one statement: the opposite of addiction is connection.
I love that.
Right, because in the Piscean age, everyone has been told that they have to mentally put all their eggs in one basket, and that's their identity and that's their salvation. Even though these are not necessarily messaging we're receiving on a broad scale in this day and age, the momentum behind the mental conditioning that we are still living out is tremendous. And so I think whatever it may be, it's going to be very Piscean. It's going to be using people's fear of their separation from God and the actions that they take to try and remedy that separation by either attributing themselves to a certain value system, God, religion, government, institution, belief system, etc. So it's like, how many different ways can we continually divide humanity and give humanity's scared false ego ammunition or like nourishment that the threat lies in not knowing who you are by what you believe in. And so, I think we have to understand that belief systems really don't do much good for us as a species. Like when we really stick and identify with something that we think is the right way or the only way, we've kind of just got to it comes down to common sense and history. And it's like, look, this hasn't been working. And this is what I've been talking about revisiting our core beliefs and the triggers and the reactionary circuitry of us and asking ourselves, did what I just do serve humanity, or was it just me in my Chiron Aries wounded little itty bitty scared self trying to defend my woundedness, trying to defend my smallness, trying to defend what I think is the only way to save myself in the eyes of God by being right or having the right way. So it's like this mad dash for like identification with something that is supposed to save you. And that's the complete opposite of what we're about to go through. So I don't even know if that answered the question, but that's what
I think you're right about revisiting beliefs completely, because it was an interesting perspective you had of like how especially beliefs can really be very bad for us. It's unique when Jupiter squares Neptune in its home sign, because that's only once every, since 1852 was the last time in 1853. So this is definitely, I called it today, Jupiter having to be holy, like, and even that is an old understanding. So it's like, that's why I'm using the term bleach out with all this Virgo, like bleaching beliefs, bleaching even the understanding of integrity of what that now is. This is a full bleach out. Yeah. With all this with all this Virgo, and then with Saturn coming direct in the middle of all this month lunar cycle of this Mars and a full moon coming in the middle of that Jupiter Neptune thing. That's why it's like I'm bringing up this whole subconscious, like what has been implanted, and to wake up out of it. It's no coincidence that right before all this happened, Matrix 4 is coming out. They're making a Matrix 4, and Keanu's coming back, and Trinity's coming back, and
didn't know that.
Like there's no coincidence. And when that dropped, I know I might sound crazy, but I've based a lot of, I think, the best movie I could ever tell anybody, all three. Whenever somebody says I want to kind of wake spiritually or whatever, I'm like, go watch The Matrix and look at it from a spiritual point of view of what this is. Take it as a reality for a second into your life, because there is something about that is very true. But when I saw that Matrix 4 in the last couple of days come out, I was like, oh, we're about to come into it, because they don't leave you at the end kind of with like, okay, he makes a deal and still the Matrix.
Now, you go.
I was going to say also with astrology, or like with these tools, like we could also use them to inform ourselves. So this whole like Neptune Jupiter dynamic, it's going to be set off. It's going to be ignited over the next month. We're going to have all the personal planets transit through Virgo. They're all going to oppose Neptune and square Jupiter. And so it's going to be like, okay, first is going to be Venus. So the first place where you're going to see all of this show up in your personal life is in relationship, with your values or with money.
While the moon will be in Libra.
Perfect. But like we have the map, right? So let's just follow the map. So like if something comes up that is kind of like this ticking time bomb, or like this really disorienting kind of situation, because it feels like it's conflicting with your normal fixed perception or understanding or belief, this would be a good time to be open to questioning that, to be like, okay, this is the first arena, and then Mars is going to come, like I think let's use the astrology.
Well, yeah, technically Mercury's going to go
right.
and meet with Venus and Libra.
Right. You're right.
Before even the equinox, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's what makes this crazier about mind, because Mercury coming into Virgo is the operational mind, like the really deep operational mind. Not so much thoughts, Gemini is much more thoughts and questions and curiosity, where Virgo's like, I'm not really that curious anymore. I'm just trying to figure this thing out,
Like the system.
Like and keep this operating and keep the motor going, Whereas then you have Jupiter, the higher mind, now in a gnarly square to Neptune, in a retrograded Neptune now too. So it's like a tidal wave is coming at it. Mm-hmm. Now Jupiter is the biggest planet, but it's still kind of like, it's not going to just be like a big party that it wants.
But we can see it. We know that it's coming, and we're going to see it play out in these personal planets.
Oh, totally.
One by one by one. So if it happens, be like, ooh, this is showing me something. This isn't actually happening. This is showing me something. And in that moment, that's when we have the opportunity with Neptune retrograde, the deep subconscious, we can like rewrite, restructure.
So both higher and lower are being rewritten.
Yeah.
Or like I like Dylan's analogy through the last, months. Like this is just teaching us to just disconnect from not from the mind completely, but from the core of the mind being the space of identity of ourselves and souls and reality
and authority over our lives, because it's not
No.
Hasn't been for a while.
And with Saturn about to come direct on the South Node, that's going to be huge because that's the end of that transit, because South Node's going to be done with Saturn, and Saturn's going to move forward, and that's over. And that's been a hard time since April. This whole time since April, we have been dealing with South Node, Saturn. So reality is heavy. You're feeling, but I think it's an important bedrock element that needed to be re-examined and patient with, because all this energy is very ramped up, but Saturn is stopped. So it's the authority of Saturn that says the boats can move now, or the cars can go, the green light's on now. Saturn is the green light, red light of the universe, you know? So with it still in retrograde, even though all this stuff is all pumped up, it's almost like, you know, it's like, it reminds me of the old LA, I don't know, remember when you'd pump up your shoes?
Oh yeah, LA gear. LA gear.
You're pumping it up, and then it's like super, super tight, and it's like, but okay, it's really tight now. It's like, but I really don't know. I want to release it. No, not yet. Like there's this, and with Jupiter ballooning, with Neptune and all this stuff, and squaring Jupiter, there is going to be this, whoa.
So like when Sarah was talking about kind of knowing our terrain and using our tools and the map that we have as people who do astrology,
or human design,
although it's less about prediction in space. But anyway, so like we know what's coming up, and we're in this Virgonian energy of the bottom line. So we can go and we can reorient ourselves for this month, for those that are aware, and be like, okay, this is not the month for me to finally meet my twin flame and finally get it right and like it'll all work out. It's like, no, we've got to be very practical this month. We've got to look at the challenges and triggers in front of us, and through the eyes of Virgo, which is concerned with perfection and efficiency, about actually completing the lesson, the exam. And instead of getting and being lost in our Neptunian and Pisces like dreams and desires, and because I feel like in the spiritual community, jumping over here a bit, in the spiritual community, you can use all this knowledge about spirit and about astrology and cycles to actually sink deeper into your delusions. And I see that a lot, you know, and I see
Burning
that.
Man's happening exactly
Chiron
right now.
in Aries.
Wait, what?
Burning Man's happening right now.
Right.
Like that's Chiron in Aries, where like the medicine becomes the toxin. Because like the dose is incorrect. It's improper dosage.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. 100%. The pharmacy's talking with the cartel and throwing out what they got.
Right. So bottom line with this month is you really have to put on your Virgonian warrior cap or warrior princess cap and, you know, get down to business, because like this is kind of like, I feel like for some weird reason, I got this vision of the movie Starship Troopers. And in this movie, before they go to the alien planet or wherever the aliens are to fight them, they're going through their training, and it feels very real. You know, it even seems like someone dies during the training, or someone maybe does die during the training. But anyway, this...
You know, I'm best friends with Patrick Muldoon, who's in that movie.
I think actually my father was an extra in that movie as
nice.
well.
Small world.
Small world.
Connected.
There's actually a lot to that movie people don't know.
I'd love to hear about that sometime.
Well, I was just going to say, it's going to play into what you're doing, is that the way that they got people to go to war in the movie, like, join now, you must, the planet is under attack, and the way they show how they thought it was a comedy movie they were doing. But the director was like secretly showing an eerie truth to, you know, rallying people up to do things in a subliminal way. But go on.
Right. So, yeah, like if you want to get through this month with flying colors and all A's, you really have to, give yourself that space between taking things personally and seeing the gift in every challenge, because that's the potential here. Like we've been saying, there is a huge growth opportunity right now. And guess what? That's just going to put you in the best position to continue to ride these extremes that are oncoming as we grow and evolve. And those extremes can actually push you into new heights of yourself if you will, for a metaphor, rather than be things that are insurmountable. And we need each other for that too. We need that support towards each other and that attitude of they're working through it too. You know, even with the people that piss you off the most online or that you have feuds with in the spiritual community because of your beliefs, those are your teachers this month. How practical can you get with your acceptance of them? And how can that change the way that you approach any human being? Because that's how we heal the planet, one person at a time.
Well, think about this. So Regulus is in Virgo now, and everything during this fire and all this. And there was a lot last weekend with Mars and Venus. I don't care who you were on the planet. You faced some sort of weird fucking conflict. You know what I mean? That you weren't probably predicting. But with all that was on Regulus, I did a live, and I was very vulnerable this last week on Instagram about how hard it is as a man to kind of embrace, especially as a double Leo, with Regulus at 29 that I'm born with, and my rising's there, my Mercury, to embed this Leo 9 Regulus lion's heart into Virgo. It's very difficult because it's feminine, it's goddessy. But what it is this love that is on our planet and whatever, it's very animalistic. Love has got an animalistic quality to it. But when it comes into Virgo, it's about taming it, but without putting it in a cage, like in the strength card, and how the Virgo is taming the lion and knowing you have so much strength. Let's use it when it's necessary. Let's use it at its best way. And relax. And why don't you enjoy the love of, it doesn't have to be animalistic the whole time. And I think that when you bring up the best thing is understanding we're all going through this, and you're right, this is definitely not a time. And I brought up the Burning Man thing because it's like, there might be a lot of people who might not want to go back to Burning Man just after this transit, because it'll be like, I'm trying to run into more of the spiritual illusion, but oh my God, like I almost died. I didn't have enough water. I took too many drugs. I did the, you know what I mean? It's going to be like, what the, now there's a lot of dust in my eyes now. Now I'm going to have to go to the doctor. Like there's a lot of like weird things that could come up, but this is this interesting point to where we have to do the work, because the harvest season always is the last moment before we go to the equinox, where it's like the balance beams of moving into the darker energy of the 6 months of darkness, not like this negative thing, but just of less light. And that's why you must harvest now to survive through the winter, the fall and the winter. So if you're not going to do this work and you're going to go, I'm not going to harvest, I'll be okay, and then just let everything sit on the plants or the trees, and then what happens? You get to Libra, and then if you try and rush at that point, everything's already kind of rotting, and you didn't store it correctly, or you didn't put it in its proper place. You didn't neatly wrap everything and put it all in the right bundles to where it's all set up to where you know it won't rot, you know it won't do this. You get to Libra, and that's where the balance beams of life show up and go, oh, you know, this is all you have, okay? So this is what you've got to split. That's all you have, you know. And oh, God, people can freak out at that point. And I think this is a more harvesting of, you're right, getting things straight in ourselves, doing the right thing, which whatever that is not through this ego. I love your analogy of Chiron and Aries, like this little, just... I don't even know. I already see the character though.
It's like the little like mouse, but there's a projector behind it, you know, so the shadow is projected on this wall as like this giant, and it's just this like little mouse. Yeah. I think too, being aware of like, you can actually hear in your thought, if you have any kind of mindfulness practice where you have an awareness of your thoughts, you can know the difference between fear and intuition or any kind of other thought just by simply tuning into like, how is this thought talking to me? Because like it's very distinctly different, where fear speaks very fast, it speaks loudly, it speaks repeatedly, it's like yelling at you, it's over and over and over. That's how fear in the mind shows up. So we know, like knowing that, we can identify that, and then we don't have to like stop it. We don't have to force it to stop it. We don't have to let it drive us, because intuition or clarity or truth it's very soft. It's very clear. It's like just things open up and it's just sitting there waiting for you. You know, it's not rushing to get to your attention. So I think anything that's feeling rushed or energy in your mind, that like if that's what's going on, having the self-responsibility and the self-containment to give yourself what you need, which is probably space and time to either set it down or go do some act of self-care, or just like put it down, you know what I mean? And then that time discernment thing. And then it's like, oh, that thought that had so much energy and it felt so true and it was like driving me, it's like, that's not really even there anymore. You know, I can see it now.
I was going to say that because Dylan brought up, like, it's really not this time of, you know, this kind of magical, like, imaginative, like, as the pure source of intention right now, because that only will come because there is the opposition. That means it only will come if you have all your ducks in a row in your life correctly. So actually the dream comes by not chasing the dream, but just by doing the practical steps of being able to receive the beauty in the dream. Just how if you don't do the right steps in the mind right now, you're not going to let this beautiful energy kind of just go like, here you go. You know, like it fits in perfect. Like Pisces fits into a perfectly nestled, like perfectly set up row of energy of Virgo. Like it, like, you know what I mean? It just kind of, it's like the way you see fog over the horizon with like the ocean and the mountains, you know, and how it perfectly finds a way to go right in there. But if it's all chaotic, or we're living in these jail homes, you know, and it starts getting all like creaky in there, and like, you know, then it looks kind of scary, fearful, right? When it all kind of comes in. But I think you're right that this is not about making the intention about this dream, but just like, it's not even head down either. It's aware, but just like, if I actually just kind of do the more practical, more proper, in a way that's good for me and healthy
mature.
for me, and it is mature. It is the last sign before we get to the fall, the equinox point. And also, you know, Virgo rules the stomach, right? There's a lot going on in there, right? So, and the intestines and a lot of that. So it's like, either things are going to pass through right now easy, or they're going to be like
The purge.
Yeah. So interesting that Tim had brought up doing a parasitic cleanse.
I kind of look at it like we're all on the Titanic right now, and it's like there's a perfect time right now to find your lifeboat. And once you have that lifeboat, there's a sense of security. And then you have your lifeboat, then you can help others find their lifeboat. So the ship is so-called sinking, but what are you going to do about it? Are you going to party like nothing's wrong, or are you just going to find your support system?
Or you're going to patch every hole you can find.
Well, since you're in this space, Tim, so let's say, because your concept is to where kind of going with where the real environment does go. Let's say if something were to happen in the zone and where you're building your community, what's it like moving it?
You know, I don't think it's going to be the easiest, but they're all containers, so the whole thing could probably be packed up to about 50 containers. So I'm looking at land right now. It's by train stations. So hypothetically, you just plop it on a train and you could move elsewhere.
Right, or even trucks can.
A lot of big rigs.
Yeah, big rigs can take a container too. But that's kind of it's a very Virgo, like Lego thing to me, right? Like Legos are very Virgo to me, and how you can do it mixed with Capricorn, I feel. Of like setting the right structure correctly. Like here in California, like we just don't build big buildings without putting rollers on them because of earthquakes. But it's also why New York and LA are so different, because in New York, the bedrock is so deep and it is so strong that you can go hundreds of stories up and there are no earthquakes. And even if there were, it's just so strong. But down here, we have these plates that are moving. We're all on dirt. The soil's kind of weird, and there's an ocean shelf that literally the ocean goes underneath us, which is kind of crazy that we're like on a shelf. Did you know that we're like on a shelf?
Snap off.
Yeah.
If there's anywhere you need to be mobile, it's probably in California. Just saying.
Well, we kind of live on the edge here. It is a edgy place. It's edgy and why everybody came west for gold, to It's edgy for Hollywood and creating the media. It's edgy in its beginnings of marijuana in 1995. It's always going to bring a new edge to the world, or as Red Hot Chili Peppers would say, Californication. That without Californication, I mean, I don't know how much of the awakening could have happened.
It's a place of mutation. It's a place of mutation. I also thought of this with the Chiron Aries thing. It's kind of like...
Please.
I love this. Is such a dark horse. Like, I did not see Chiron and Aries coming in so hot this show. This is so
I know,
weird.
right?
Yeah.
So Uranian, you never know. You're never going to expect
saw that
it.
coming. Yeah.
So like kids, because Aries is the sign of the child, like the new being. How do kids control their environment? They pitch fits and they get loud and they get whiny because they know when they do that, it'll tug on the heartstrings of their parents and then they'll get the support that they think they're lacking. Your ego is that child right now with Chiron and Aries. Are you pitching fits to prove that you need what you think you need? Or are you teaching that child that it has the what it takes to meet its own needs? Because you're an adult now if you're watching, most likely. So ask yourself, like, is this vibe I'm sending out right now, maybe it's on, in traffic or whatever, is it my whiny child trying to control the world so that it can basically validate its victim mentality? Or am I going to give my inner child a hug and then remind it that, the screen was unlocked the whole time and it can go outside and play anytime it wants, So like, I don't know, it just came to me.
Yeah, you do know. I think the conversation with friends has been, it's funny because it's for kids throwing tantrums and like toddlers, but when toddlers get to a certain age, I don't have children, so I don't have any like stance on that actually. But there's this theory, it's called choice theory, and it's like when they start to get their individuation, they need that. They don't need you to tell them what to do. They need to have that autonomy. That's what they're developing at that time.
Right.
And it's almost like we didn't have that. Like we all were conditioned because like that's, and so now we're all healing this autonomy, this independence through this Chiron, and we're like, I need to do it my way. And to a sense, like we do need to have our authenticity and our autonomy and our sovereignty. That is actually happening simultaneously. And like a toddler, give yourself choice therapy. Like literally, like, okay, here's how you feel. Okay, I understand. So you have these choices. Do you want to do this and have this consequence? Or do you want to do this and have this consequence? And then choose.
And we're weighing the consequences in today's climate and in the place we are evolutionarily, that weighing of the consequences has to include the whole now. Mm-hmm. It just has to. Because to not be would be doing the very thing we've been warning about during this talk, which is just being, bypassing that collective responsibility that we're all painfully aware of right now, that our choices do affect everyone. So that is the hidden delusion of this month is, I'm being super practical. I'm like showing up for my shadow work and my light work. Yeah, but are you letting that be informed by an awareness of the whole of humanity and the earth? If we're just looking at our own lives and we're just content with making progress in our own lives, we're still kind of being hypocrites.
I like how you brought up the children and pulling on the heartstrings, because let's take, for example, I don't know how many commercials we've seen forever, people using images of children to get money for their funds, and then you find out that like they didn't give them much.
Yeah.
Or right at the border crisis, there was this whole thing about children with this Chiron and Aries and being separated, but like I don't know the percentage now, but there's a big percent where it's like they're not even their kids. They're using the kids as a heartstring to be pulled if they get catched to an easier situation of being caught and being like, well, I had a child.
Oh,
right?
I see.
That's like the biggest thing that's happening with illegal immigration. So it's kind of interesting how people can maybe use certain situations with Chiron and Aries, like these little identity figures, whether it's not children, but just like victim roles to pull on people's strings to get them the pain relief they need.
Right.
Yeah, it's a temporary. It's like and I like need this immediate relief. Yeah, and it's unconscious.
It's stories too with Jupiter and square Neptune that are really like repeating stories. You know, you have those people you've known or whatever where it's like the same story. You call them 10 years later. How are you? Yeah. You know, it's still about that I just don't know how to find a job. There's no jobs out there. I've never done it. Right? It's like the same repetitive victim thing, whatever that is. We all have parts of that somewhere. So it's not like pointing any individual out, right? But it's like, where do we put a stop to that now with Jupiter square Neptune coming up here again for the last time, the third pass? And where do we not use this heartstring pulled identification of victimhood to people to try and feel better when it doesn't make you feel better? Because actually then people start kind of backing away a little bit, right? Like they kind of actually go, no, sorry.
Right, and I think we got to put on our Virgo headset again in this sense, because we have these emotional strategies that are prevalent in society that, like, if someone's crying, then, oh, everyone has to go help this person crying and la la la, like they, you know. And I'm not saying, you know, nothing about victim shaming, of course, but it's like people can have emotion and not have it be a devastating crisis. You know, we get to have an emotion and then recover from it. We don't have to like baby and, you know, lower ourselves or divert our energy just because someone's having an emotion. We have to all understand now that we're having emotions. Some are big, some are small, and they are also our responsibility. You know, they're not something that we need to just like over coddle people about, because then we're not being spiritually mature. By caving in and imploding into their emotion, we're not identifying it objectively as an emotion that's passing through energy and motion. We're making it a spectacle in a crisis when it doesn't need to be.
We're making it our wardrobe and wearing the victim brand.
Right.
And putting that as loud as we can.
It's permeating our entire reality.
Yeah.
And that's where like the Virgo like put it.
Well, how interesting, a collective wearing their victim identity roles at once. With the Uranus and Taurus of unique individual values that, that's why Uranus is at fault. It has the hardest time going, okay, you like blue hair and you like this hair and you don't want this, but you want that. I mean, oh gosh. So could you imagine Uranus being in like a room with 1,000 people and being like, what does everybody want to eat in today's world? It's like, how do you find the common thing that everybody would be down for? Right now, you wouldn't be able to. We don't have that solution, so relax a little bit on that one, because it'll be found soon. That's what innovation does. It's like the breakdown has to be known. Like, wow, all these 1,000 people in here would not be agreeing on the one food we would all eat today.
So then you just get food, and they have the choice to eat it or not.
Yeah, that's very Capricorn.
Yeah.
You're on the boat. We have bread and butter.
I love bread and butter.
I know, so do I. But that was like what they did in jail in those old days. Like if you're in the Navy back in the day, right? Like if you were caught war capture or whatever, like that's what they gave you in jail was, here's your bread. And sometimes you got butter if they had it, but here's your bread.
And though we aren't in jail, and we aren't looking at the option of bread and butter, and I think it's really important that we look at like, I think this is like a shadow of the spiritual community and how like the manifestation community and the whole idea of like manifesting our desires and law of attraction and all of that. And like, it's good to have desire. It's good to like want what you want and to not hold yourself back, to like, I believe in limitless beliefs. And also like you have so much, like, can we be great? Like there's like a level of gratitude that's kind of like missing in a sense, where it's like there's so much perfection in what's manifested right now. The amount of things we've all manifested, if you're awake and aware, it's beautiful what we've created in the last year and a half of like playing in these kind of realities. It's so dope. And it's, you know, it's always developing, always evolving, but there's kind of this like, that like Virgo tends to be like, it would be better if it was like 2 inches taller and like, I don't know. I'm just like, and it's not bread and butter, but we act like it sometimes. Like we can be so like bitchy about how awesome life is.
Which I think you bring up a great point, because Virgo is very simple. Right? Like if you watch what a Virgo wears, usually it's not like an Aries, like Lady Gaga wearing a meat suit or very extravagant. Sure, Beyonce's a Virgo, so but it's her voice that we see or whatever.
She's Scorpio moon though.
Yeah, she has a Scorpio moon, so she'll add that. But like for the most part, most Virgos wear a very simple tailored suit or pretty simple clothes, or it's like, even if it might be outlandish, but it's the same thing all the time. Like, well, I like these pants and I like this kind of shirt. And that's what I wear all the time, and that's it. Like
that feels.
It kind of can feel plain, right? It doesn't add a lot of flavor, which is much more Piscean. Like let's add all of the weird stuff on the cake and like make all the cake batter, and let's add a weird tier on this and that, and like it reminds me, Pisces is very cake-ish. Like like stack as much as you can of just sugar and put on a candy cane, and throw on some chocolate and just throw it all over it. Whereas like Virgo's like, like,
well, because it gets rid of excess, right? Like it digests.
Only the
it's like it reminds me of like a bento box, like Virgo, like very simple. Like here's your rice, here's your sushi, here's your rice, and here's your seaweed, and like you're good, go.
And you're good,
go.
Yeah. That's where we're at.
I'm very cake-ish.
Yeah, and I know we do got to end the show because it's getting late, but I just wanted to say, when I thought about that whole Uranian, like, how is all 1,000 people gonna and their values get together? It's okay that maybe we don't know that right now. We all have to like learn to accept each other till we find that, and we don't know what that is. So if you start damning people, like, well, you're the reason why that we all didn't eat this, or you're the and so I don't think it will be veganism. I don't think it will be meat eating. I think we're going to have some hybrid food where we find the best of all the resources on the earth. That's the best for the earth and everything, and we're all going to be eating some weird new situation that we didn't even realize yet, that we didn't even figure out.
Willy Wonka already invented it, and it's called the gobstopper, and it becomes your favorite flavor.
Yeah.
When you eat
it. But I feel that when I think of this whole food situation and people's diets and stuff, I really do believe that there is going to be, with Uranus and Taurus at the end of it, some sort of resource connecting that could feed all 1,000 people easy, like on space food. Like how
I was thinking of your spaceship.
Like right, like. There is something with Aquarius that will be coming through, and with Pluto in Aquarius at the end of Uranus Taurus, like there's totally going to be something that we all think it's this, but all of them are not sustainable, right? Like all the diets right now are not sustainable about the earth. There's something that's going to have to be more sustainable that we don't know yet.
It's called soul food.
Well, yeah, I think that's this 59th gate, which is, to me, when you expose yourself and you become intimate and you get to a place, that's where the nourishment is, of feeling when you are open fully and accepting of it all,
I think there might be plagues, too, that wipe out a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I talked about that
takes
tonight
care of,
pretty intensely.
The sustainability thing.
Yeah.
Fear is a plague, wiping out quite a lot.
Right. I believe that most people, we don't know, because it's all just in writings when there was plagues. But and this is a belief, so maybe it's not right, and of course, just a belief that I believe that people that get wiped out by plagues are people who are plagued within themselves of dissatisfaction, unhappiness, feeling like they've let their soul not be nourished by soul food, and let the system or the hierarchy kind of tell them how to be, and get stuck in some sort of system that they're just not happy with. And the universe, Pluto and Saturn kind of in Capricorn, kind of ushered this kind of energy in for over 35 years, which kind of go, why are you here? There's room for a lot of other souls. Are you good? You're not good? Okay, out. Like there's this old cane, pulling them out. And I wanted to say this about Tim and what your community is like. When you made the visualization, for me at least, of that we live in, I like the analogy of the jails of homes now and stuff. It reminded me of Boardwalk and Monopoly, that all these hotels are stacked on it now. And so everybody, no matter what your roles are and your dice are, but everybody ends up getting to those hotels, and you always win the game usually when you are on Boardwalk and you do have this. But I think we've reached this point to where it's just like, just with home prices and the maintaining of a home and the separation from community it's created, it kind of feels like a burden now to even get through the whole track of life, just in the way that we live in our simplistic elements of things. And it's like, I think that we don't have to deny ourselves of living in a pleasurable state either with Uranus and Taurus. It's just going to be a new way. Like you said, living art more instead of just viewing it. To me, it's like, that's the most beautiful part is, I think it'd be badass to have like a cool art waterfall that was self-sustaining with the water that did it, and also cleaned maybe, well, the water, but it was a waterfall, and it was my walk through to my doorway to my RV or something. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, come into and then I put some cool vampire shit.
I think what can bring us together is inspiration and innovation. Inspiration is such a powerful word. We were talking about earlier, like, what's inspiration? It's being in spirit. And there's this really awesome yoga teacher named Guru Singh, and he talked about literally the bridge between the third and fifth dimension is one word, and it's inspiration. So we lack inspiration. My page is inspire with words, but it's just inspiration. Like, if people had more of that, they would be motivated to shake it up. I mean, if you want things to shake it up, it's one thing, it's inspiration. That can move mountains.
That's
I want to say this about you, Tim. When I met you in Denver, I mean, you stuck out like a sore thumb because you were so inspiring to that room because we met earlier before the event. And that's how we connected right away, because right away in that room, you brought inspiration into that place. And it fed other people, and it fed me even. And I think that's great about what you do, because I think that that's a beautiful analogy of the bridge between these dimensions or worlds, is truly to be inspiring, to be positive, to bring something that shows somebody that, look at what can happen, look at what's possible, look what can be done. And I think people take that as ego, but I think Chiron and Aries is redirecting what we identify as ego now. Like, no more will inspiration be considered egoic anymore, I hope at least, because that's also been something that comes up a lot and triggers a lot of people, where that triggers the victimhood of like, well, I'm not inspiring, so you're an egotistical maniac.
I mean, if you look at the fires, well, if we could somehow create a fire of inspiration, it's so magnetic, it's so contagious. It's just we have to redirect that fire, and instead of destroying, creating, and that through inspiration, people feel it. It's like, it's so powerful, and it can travel so quickly, and its effect is just limitless.
Well, you have that effect on people, Tim. Like, right away when I met you and you told me about what you were doing, I was like, that is so cool. Like, in the minute I thought about it, I like put myself in that community. That's how fast you traveled me from the third to the fifth.
Boom. You were saying.
Right? Which actually, it's that yoga teacher that you talk about, that's fascinating to me.
You should check him out.
What we do with astrology and human design and all that is like instantly take people to a fifth dimension of like using an inspirational motive of where it goes and taking you there so you can see it. But when you can see that, you can start accessing your 3D world in that direction towards that place. And that's, I think, the way through this time and out of the old 600-year gate we were in, cycle of planning that is ending, that I think it's just leaps of inspiration to the fifth constantly that are just that's just like, it's like a bunny, like just keep jumping that way with a tortoise element still, like being grounded while inspiring at the same time, which always the tortoise does with a race. So like you don't need to inspire and then jump so quick, because what's the point? And that kind of goes to what you were saying too, is like you don't need to just right away. Like this is definitely going to be a tortoise hare race with Saturn stop then turning direct, and still being really slow on the south node, which can feel like panic. I think that there's going to be panic over, am I going to be okay with my money? Am I going to be okay in this relationship? Or whatever the situation is that Saturn's going to bring up with it stopping. And I mean, we'll be talking about this as the weeks ahead, but I think with this energy of like the ultimate hair with Mars and Virgo and Mercury and Virgo and Venus, right? The fastest hair that ever could, having to deal with this tortoise that's like really slow. And people going either bouncing off the walls or like, I'm moving, I'm curious, I'm practical, and you don't know, but that tortoise might be the whole time singing in its head, bopping a cool song, you know, visualizing what it's going to do after it wins the race and gets the $1 million and goes finds another little tortoise and goes has some little tortoise babies.
Because the tortoise knows it can jump in the ocean and ride the wave.
Yeah.
Anytime.
So last thoughts from everybody. We can go down the row.
Okay, first of all, I want to say when you were talking about Boardwalk and winning that thing, Monopoly was the most, like, I hated that game growing up. It took hours. I don't think I've ever finished a Monopoly game. So I'm super stoked that paradigm's ending. So we can actually all play.
Uranus and Taurus was when Monopoly came out.
New game. Okay. First of all, the home I would live in, thought of it. What I imagined is like an art, what is that called? The easel. Yes. So then there's like paint on the inside, and then you can like, yeah. Okay, so it's made out of different paint no, not an easel, but a palette. Oh. Like a paint palette. Wow. Okay, paint palette. Now I get it. Okay.
I told you we would all be like, well, okay, wasn't going to guess that one.
Okay. I'm going to share something that a dear friend of mine shared with me today. There's a lot of fire right now, and there's a lot of fire of creativity and inspiration, and this Uranus energy, I think of that lightning bolt in spirit, like spirit coming into you and through you. And she said, with all this fire, what needs to burn and what needs warmth? And I think for the inspiration thing and the purging, the purification thing, I love that for just last thoughts right now in life. It's like tend your flames of inspiration and the things that really bring something out of you. Like when you think about doing it, it is inspired. It is inspiring. It's exciting. It's like, can't wait to do that. And let the other stuff kind of just naturally in service, you know, purify and go. Yeah. Woo. Woohoo!
So, final comments. Your mind, you don't have to believe everything you think. And I think that's such an important strategy to emphasize this month because Virgo is so detail-oriented and Mercury ruled kind of mental. But it's also a place where we can become very objective because when we have those clear objectives about what we're really here to do this month, which is work through our subjectivity and our victim mentality and the things and beliefs that separate us and provoke us to separate and demonize other groups and other people. So like this month is a month to really scrutinize your own mind. Don't scrutinize other people. You can't control that. That will never eventuate into your enlightenment or your happiness, but you can scrutinize your own mental patterns, and you can see how your own ego is selling you this version of reality that keeps you stuck, that keeps you fearful, that keeps you blaming. And you can also see that that's not all that's going on within you as a being. And when you can just make that little bit more space by just being a little bit more aware and a little less reactive to what your mind is propagandizing you, then you open that beautiful space for the universe to come in, or your own spirit to come in, or just grace to come in and show you a better way. And I think that's what this month is all about, is finding that more human, that more connected, that more authentic and transparent way towards progress, connection, and beauty.
Oh.
I think this is like a really beautiful time to push ourselves. I feel if we can just get over that hump of fear and just live in that uncomfortable space, there's like beautiful surprises and opportunities that await us. And it's like the gift's over that fire. You have to literally walk through that fire. Like, talk about fire. If we can walk through that fire, there is something very special on the other side.
Oh.
Yeah, I love that. I would say that mine is, don't be afraid to experience one, even if it doesn't look perfect, you know, like, because there's going to be a lesson there about that teaches how to be better, not perfect, but better in alignment. And then I think another one is with Uranus trining all this. We had talked about in a joke, I think it was last week, so I remember, about like, do not WebMD during this time.
Yes.
With all this
Still
Virgo
don't do
coming
that.
in, and still especially don't do that. And I love, because how Dylan says you don't have to believe what all your thoughts are. Because let's say you have a thought like, ooh, this is happening, or maybe my knee hurts, or maybe now you start thinking, maybe I'm gonna have a stroke. Like, you know, it can go that fast. Like,
Yeah.
but with Uranus, there are energies that are coming in that you can't see, that are foreign. And you have to, one, take, I think, a second and go, okay, I'm feeling this. This is in my reality, and something might show up, or something might come in, or something might go out. Uranus is like a turnstile, like of in and out energy. That's how a circuit works. So if something leaves out, like, there's going to be some purpose for it, and you watch, something will come back in, and the feelings in the body we are going to experience will be weird, because there was so much. I haven't seen this much to Uranus in a long time, except since the last time, which was the solar eclipse on 2 years ago in Leo, that was trine Uranus. But that was in Aries, and that was in Leo, and I mean, we definitely saw a weird turn of events for 2 years through that whole cycle. This is more of a monthly one, you know? So there is something to say about this will be weird, and it will be, and I think that the beginning or the middle of this week, Wednesday and Thursday, with the dark moon in Leo, you know, it's going to be in all those yods. It's going to have some really weird emotional stuff that comes up that might not make you happy. And it's like learning to, instead of create some sort of tension around that, like allow it and find the happiness of what's coming in and out. Like, this is a little bit like being a scientist and knowing that you need a lot of things to come in and some things in the lab that need to come out, and being okay with whoever shows up with that. Well, okay, thank you. And then whoever takes something and leaves, it's like, oh wait, I need that. It's like, wait, do I really, do I already used it? Of course, we get that kind of Taurus aspect, like, it's nice to have that in case I break it or something, right? And it's like, wait, maybe I don't. It's good. You know, it's kind of like, if you get in a car and you fill it up with gas, and you know you're only going 100 miles, but the car will go 300 miles, it's like, but my gas card flew out the window. It's like, I do have enough gas, though, so guess that was supposed to fly out the window, and be like okay with it at that moment. Because if you stress over wanting to have that gas card and wanting to have it when you already have enough gas and you're fine, you've wasted your time, like Sarah has said, on something just so stupid. Because I think it's about discernment of time, like, in what we put our energy on, like she had brought up. So it will be a lot of in and out energy, but it's all divine and it's all beautiful. And I think you all were so great tonight. And I think that, yeah, I think that it's not about this kind of more dreamy Neptunian, even spiritual, like, fantasy to put first, but that shows up as in when we just show up to do what's in front of us and continue to do the work that aligns us in the best way that we can to be human, to do the harvesting of what makes us better as a human in our life. And that's what brings in all the beauty. So thanks for being a part of After Dark. It was a great time to have Sarah here, and Dylan, Spirit Advisor, and having Tim in here. Happy new moon, everybody, this week that'll be watching this. Please share it out to your friends. We love it. You can find all the information on everybody here underneath the video with their Instagrams, their websites, and everything. And follow them and reach out to them if you want to get help for anything. And, of course, these two have awesome schools, Dylan and Sarah, on High Vibe, too. They have some awesome courses. Thank you all so much for being here and sending you all the best way late at night. And we'll see you on the next After Dark.
Bye.
Bye.